Hello and welcome to the quote section. So quotes is basically I'm trying to explain you how to handle single quotes and double quotes and how you can put it in the string. And this can be done with something called as escape character. The escape character is this / using which you can escape any single quotes or double quotes. Using this escape character you can even write new lines, right? And also you can escape double quotes when you are writing inside the double quotes. Okay, so let's do an example to understand this. We'll call it quotes. Right, so let's write a string here. Define a variable called site name. Okay, and I want to have this. Okay, and let's say I'm using single quotes. Okay, and you see here, it's not able to understand the next part of the string. Okay, that's where you add the escape character. Okay, when you add the escape character, now it all becomes as in string, and then that character has been escaped in the whole string. Okay, and with a single quote. Okay, now you try to print this out. And you should be able to see the exact output. Okay, you're able to see the single quote here. Even though you have enclosed it with single quotes, it's able to escape that character. Okay, and if you put /n, what do you think? Will you have a new line on the HTML page? And how do you typically write a new line on HTML page? If you know HTML by now, you should know there will not be a new line, because this new line is not for your web page, right? It doesn't accept new line here. Okay, or it's only possible with the BR. All right, and if you want to have these conditions and you're basically doing console.log, and then your refresh, and then you go to console, you can see the new line appearing here. So this kind of new lines is for your console, not for your web page, right? Your web page need to have a BR tag here, not the new lines. The new lines, when you add it, the console.log will accept that new lines. All right, so that's all about how to work with quotes, how to use the escape sequence character, and you can add these special symbols here like tab and also carriage return and all those things. All right, so that's all about the quotes, and I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome to the Boolean expressions. So let's create a folder. Okay, and then we'll copy paste our Boolean here. All right, so let's open that file. So we'll define a Boolean condition here. We'll define a result of an operation 2 greater than 1. So this is basically a Boolean operation. So whatever value, the Boolean value is assigned to that result. And based on that variable, right, we can choose to have a string. So if there's a Boolean operation result, if it is true, then you want correct or you want wrong, right? Remember, this is a Boolean variable now, and the condition is true or false based on this operation. So whatever operation returns true or false will be stored in this Boolean variable, and based on that Boolean expression, whether it's true or false, whether it's true it becomes correct, false it becomes wrong. Okay, let's see the output. So we say message, okay, we just print the output. So it's correct that 2 is greater than 1. If you say 2 is less than 1, then it is wrong, okay, because the boolean operation is basically captured and is captured via the boolean variable. All right, so that's all. You basically use boolean variables, and I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome to the lecture on arrays. So let's create a file for array. Let's copy this. Let's create a folder. We call it as arrays. All right, let's open that file. Okay, let's understand how to define an array. So we'll define a color array. Okay, and you can define an array with the square brackets. Inside the square brackets you can define the array of values. You can say white, black, green, and blue. Right, the array is defined inside the square brackets, right, and then this you can have multiple values inside it, separate with a comma. Okay, and how do you access the array? So let's try to print everything that we can access the arrays. We can first, we'll say color array. We'll see how the color array looks like. So if you open up the array, inspect console, so it's array of 4 and 4 values in it, right? Then how do you say console.log? Hello and welcome to the lecture on date and time. Let's create a folder for date and time. Call it date. Right, so let's open up date and let's start writing the date and time. Let's access date and time and some of the properties of date and time. So I'm going to say today variable, and there's a method called date, right, and you have to say new date because it's a class. You have to create an instance of it, and once you create, now today is basically an object of a date. and via the today you can access some of the methods of that date class and print those values in the console or on the web page. Okay, so let's print them on the console first. So we say today dot, okay, to date string. Okay, the next method we can have is get full year. Then you can actually get the date as well, right? Again, open and close. Then you can even get minutes, month, month. Let's do the another scripting in the body tag. Okay, this time I don't have to create an instance of it. I can just directly use document.write. Today I can access that, right? And I can even print the same thing here. Right, instead of console.log, I'll say document.write. Right, and these things doesn't have a new line, so I have to write new lines here. Alright, very simple, nothing fancy here. I'm just writing in the console and also I'm writing on the web page. So if you open up the page, you can see the date, year, month and the date. Right, full year, date and basically the month. Okay, so it's so simple. Once you have create an instance of a date, then you can actually access time, minutes, seconds, hours, anything that you want, milliseconds, everything can be accessed with this. Okay, so it's so simple. You have to just create an instance of a date class, and via that instance you can access all the methods of the date in JavaScript. Alright, so that's all about an example on how to access date and time in JavaScript, and I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome to the lecture on if statements. So if statements are used to check a condition, right, and make a decision based on the result of a condition. Okay, and it can choose some actions when the condition is true and also some, take some action when the condition is false. And you can also do nested of multiple conditions together and decided what action to be taken when some group of conditions are true or false. How to write if condition is as simple as that. You have to just write if, then you have to open parenthesis, close parenthesis, some condition, boolean condition, then open the flower brackets, then you can start writing else if and then else. Right, else if is basically this true, you execute this, true or false, you execute this, then the else basically is the default condition. Okay, a very simple example, if you're checking for a marks greater than 35, so you say if marks is greater than 35, then you alert you are passed, else you try again. Okay, you can even have multiple conditions here. Okay, we try this simple condition, right, if marks is less than 35, and then we'll see how to write if conditions. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create if, okay, and then we're going to copy paste the bootstrap file. Right, go to our brackets. Okay, nothing fancy, we just copy that code and to understand how to write if conditions. Okay, very simple, nothing fancy here. We have defined the marks variable, marks is equal to 40. Okay, now the marks is 40, and then we are checking if this marks is greater than 35, then you are passed or else you try again. Okay, you have to change it to double quotes. Right, and then else, right, else can be like this, or it can be attached, you can follow the new line, but from a programming standpoint, this looks good. Okay, it starts, flower bracket starts here, and if has an open and close and parenthesis, and then you can check any boolean condition inside the parenthesis. Alright, so let's run this, then say you are passed, right? And if you change the condition, let's say you are got 30 marks or 20 marks, then you try again. Alright, so that's very simple to write if condition. I'll show you one more example. I'll copy one more example here. Let's open that up. Okay, is just is an example where it prompt you enter the date of the week. So if you type Monday or month, it will tell you first day of the week, then second day of the week, midweek, preparing for weekend, it's Friday, enjoy day, and resting day, and cannot find the value. Very simple, but most of the thing I want you to think about is how to write this if condition with multiple else ifs. Okay, and then in the last you have else, then inside this you can use the logical operator as well. Okay, so once you execute this, it will ask you for, let's say, Friday, right? So it says Friday. You can say Sunday, it's a resting day, then it's Monday, first day of the week, then Wednesday, so it's a midweek, right? It's just to understand how to write an if condition and how to play around with this syntax. Okay, it's very simple. You have an if, then you have a condition, open, close parenthesis, then you close and open with a flower brackets. For else if there is a space, don't combine it as one word. Else and if is have different words, so you have a space. In the last you have else. Okay, so that's all you write the if condition. Okay, so that's all about the if statements, and I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome to the lecture on switch statements. Switch statements are also equal to if statements, which is basically used to check a value and make a decision based on the result of that matching the value. And how you do it, basically have a word called switch, that is nothing but the keyword. How you write if, you have to write switch, then you have to write your variable name, and then you have whatever value that you are giving it here, you have to give it with a case. So if variable value is 10, then that case which matched, then that statement get executed. Then you have to apply something called as break to break that switch case and come out of this case. Okay, a good example is day of the week. If the day of the week, the string value we are comparing as Monday, then you alert with welcome Monday. If it's Tuesday, welcome Tuesday, and then you are doing rest of the conditions. The most important thing that you have to understand from switch statements, you have to put a variable here. Then case is nothing but checking your condition. And once you finish putting all the statements, you have to apply the break. And for default, like else, for the if condition, you have a keyword called default. And once you put the default, whatever you put it here means any case that is not been matched will be sent to default, and from there all the statements will get executed. Okay, so let's look at an example of switch statement. So let's create that 16. Okay, so let's open that up. So I copied the switch code. Well, this is a lengthy code. I want to spend time on explaining rather than typing this out. Okay, so we have a script tag, and inside we have a variable where you will accept what is the day of the week, and then we are changing it to lowercase so that we can put our conditions here now, and we don't have to check upper and lowercase. Then in the switch statement, you are putting that variable, right? You in the if condition, you put the condition, but in the switch you put the variable, and the conditions are here. Your case are basically your conditions. You are saying if this variable value matches with this, then in that result variable add this string and do a break, right? Similarly, you do everything. If none of the string matches, just put say cannot find value, right? And in the down below in the body section, we are basically printing out that result. So whatever is the result here, we are printing that out. Okay, so let's execute that. Okay, if you are entering something else, then cannot find, right? Cannot find that value. If you are like entering Monday or Monday, then it can find it. So you have to type the full name Sunday, there's a resting day, and it's coming up from this conditions here. It's another way of writing the conditional statements, right? You have a variable, you can check multiple conditions, not even strings, but you can check the numbers and booleans as well. All right, So that's all about the switch statements, and I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome to the lecture on the while loop. So let's write the while loop. Let's understand the syntax and how to write a loop with while. Okay, let's open our Bootstrap here. So this is our boilerplate. So yeah, we leave it like this. We'll write the while loop here. Okay, we'll define a counter here, and the keyword is called as while, open close parenthesis, and then you have your flower brackets. So you have your flower brackets here. In this while you have to put a condition. So we'll say counter is less than equal to 10. Okay, and in this condition the counter will never be 10, right? It's always be 0. So what you have to do is you have to increment the counter. So you say counter plus plus, right? You have done this. Now you can go ahead and print it. Console.log, the counter value is counter, right? You can even do this in the statement itself. Okay, so this is one way of writing the while loop. You have something called as do while loop, where you start with do, means there's no condition, but you have a condition where you have another condition at the bottom, right? And you decide whether to redo the same loop. So first time it executes without any condition, you check for the second time. Okay, and you can say counter is less than equal to 10, and make sure after the while you have semicolon. Here you don't need a semicolon, right? But you need a semicolon after the while. Okay, and what you have to do is you have to re-increment the counter, means you have to initialize the counter to 0, right? And now you can do the same thing here. Okay, start printing the counter. Okay, so nothing fancy here. You have a while loop and do while. While you have a condition, until this condition is met, this loop will execute. If you put true, it becomes infinite loop, will never exit out of this loop, and till this is true, this while loop get executed. So you have this increment here. So every time the counter is 1, 2, 3, 4 and then 10. Once it is 10, it has come out of that while loop. For even though it is value is 10, this will be executed, but we have anyway initialized it, and then it will go inside this loop and again execute for 10 times, right? So let's do that example. Go to inspect, right? So if you look at here, it's 0 to 10 and then 0 to 10. Okay, so we are able to execute the while loops and do while loops inside the HTML page. Alright, so that's all about while loops and do while loops. Alright, so do some exercises and get some hands-on on this while loops. Alright, so that's all for this lecture, and I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome to the lecture on for loop. So we have seen while. Let's do a for loop. Let's open this up. Let's copy our bootstrap. So we'll write our script tag. We'll define one counter variable. Okay, we don't need to define, let's define it for the for loop. So you write the for loop like this. You have 3 parts to it: initialize, and then condition, and then you have operations. right? It is basically increment or decrement operation. Right, that is your syntax for loop. So let's initialize a variable. So we'll say counter is equal to 0. Counter is condition is still it is less than equal to 10, right? We'll increment it to counter plus plus, and then we'll open and close it, and then we'll console.log the counter. Okay, working with for loop is very easy. You just have to understand the syntax. So when you do the operations, when you want to write a loop, then there's the syntax how to write the for loop. Okay, this is for loop, then your counter is equal to 0 and counter is less than 10, then you have counter plus plus. So for every loop, this will execute for the first time. Okay, this will not always assign counter to 0. Every time these two will be executed. Okay, the counter plus plus will execute after it finishes this loop. It come back here, it ignores this will be executed only for one time. Then the next time it basically checks the condition, whether the condition is met or I should start doing the operation. And before doing that operation, anyway the counter plus plus have incremented, right? Once it reach to this level, again it come back and check for this condition, right? If the condition is met, then basically go down. If the condition is not met, then it is come out of the loop. Okay, so let's run that, and we should able to see in the console 0 to 10. All right, because we initiated from 0, it is starting from 0. We initiate from 1, then it starts from 1 to 10. All right, so the most important thing you have to understand is how to write a for loop and how to work with it. You can even now you change it to counter greater than equal to 0. So till it is 0, iterate the counter and you're decrementing. So you're printing from 10 to 0. Okay, so that's from 10 to 0. All right, so you can increment it, decrement it. You can put any operations here you want. Okay, you can not only counter that variable, that is, you can use any variables that you want to do an operation here. All right, so that's the syntax for loop, and I'll see you in the next one. Welcome to the lecture on things to remember. Let's do a quick recap of what we have learned in this section. Well, we started off with identifiers, and identifiers are the name that we give to variables, functions, objects, properties, and events. Then we have looked at what are the rules of the identifiers and how to write identifiers. Then we looked at variables, like variables are used to store information which are used inside the program. We have defined some of the variables and we have also used them. There are three primitive data types that we have seen. We have seen number data type, string data type, and also boolean data type. And part of the keywords also, I've given you the list of all the keywords that should not use to define as a variable, nor you should use as an identifier. All right. Then we looked at expressions like assignment, comparison, arithmetic, logical. Okay, we have seen all these expressions and we have done some exercise as well on this. Then we looked at string operations like plus sign, plus and is equal to, which is used to append the string. Then we looked at the escape sequence to escape the single quotes, double quotes, some special characters inside your string. You can use this escape sequence. Then we have looked at boolean data type, and also we looked at array literals and array objects, how to define an array, how to access an element of an array, how to find the length of an array. We have looked at all the different types of handling arrays in JavaScript. Then we looked at how to use date and time, how to print date, how to print a specific day or month or date time stamp for a specific day. We looked at all those things via the function called as state. And also the statement, we have looked at if conditions, switch conditions, while loop, and for loop. And also we have done some exercises to understand how to write these of the statements. Well, these are the lectures that we have seen in this section, and I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome to the summary section for JavaScript Language Syntax. Let's look at the things that you should know by now. By now, you should be able to understand the language basics like identifiers, variable and constants, primitive data types, keywords and reserved words. And you should also know how to work with operators like assignment operator, logical, string, quotes, boolean arrays, and date and time. Also in the statements, you should understand how to write if conditions, switch statements, while loop, and for loop. And also in the language syntax, you should understand how to work with JavaScript. Alright, so these are the topics that we have covered in this section. I hope you understand how to work with all these things in JavaScript. Alright, so that's all for this section. I'll see you in the next one.